Chapter 21, Making Trouble for Wuan Marquis Household. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Du and Murong Ro, both mother and daughter, were wealthy, yet they were still unscrupulous in stealing both her and her brother's assets. How greedy and ambitious! Any little relationship between them had been destroyed by both mother and daughter. The goods in her mother's dowry shop could be given to anyone except for Wuan Marquis Household. The managers looked at each other, their faces turned bitter, reporting to young mistress. We send our staff to the Wuan mansion every month to ask for money, but they still stall us and never give any money. That's right, young mistress. Wuan Marquis Household's people are very cunning. No matter what our staff say, they only say one sentence: we will pay next month. When our staff ask for money next month, they will continue saying that they will pay the next month. This way, they have delayed payment from 10 years ago till now, as the managers noisily discussed. Murong Shue's mouth curled into a sneer. Du and Murong Roa are planning to quietly move all the goods away from Chen's dowry shop. How ambitious! They are really skilled in the art of silently stealing. Now that she has taken over the management of the shops, the mother and daughter's schemes should end here. I have thought of a way. If you follow my instructions, I promise that Wuan Marquis Household will obediently pay up the money owed. Really? The manager's eyes brightened and looked towards Murong Shue in unison. What way? The streets of the capital were busy and crowded. Early spring breeze mixed with the fragrance of hundreds of flowers, making people happy. The bright sunlight shone onto people, making them warm. A grand horse carriage slowly traveled and steadily stopped in front of Wuan Marquis Household. The curtain opened and a young girl in pink stepped out. Her face was bright like blossoms, her hair like dark clouds, her brows like spring's mountains and her eyes like autumn's water. It was Wuan's wife, born oldest daughter Song Qinyan. Stepping onto the steps and off the carriage, Song Qinyan held onto her maid's arm and walked into the mansion. Her eyes glanced towards the oakwood box, her mouth curved into an elegant smile. The jewelry shop's new jewelry suited her very much, so she had taken them without any hesitation. Oldest aunt's, Chen's, dowry shop was good like that. Whatever she saw she could take, and only need to record in the accounts without paying. Young mistress. The guard respectfully bowed towards her. Song Qinyan acknowledged with a hum and gracefully walked into the main door. She was just about to enter the main hall when a male voice came from behind her. I am the staff from Juyu Court, under the order of the manager to clear the accounts of Wuan Marquis Household. Please help me inform. Song Qinyan's beautiful brows frowned slightly. She turned towards the staff only to see him wear a grey rough robe. He was of average height, with common looks, and was the type that could stand in the crowd and definitely not be noticed. Isn't Juyu Court and the client's accounts settled once a month? It is not the start nor the end of the month. What are you settling? She has just taken new jewelry from Juyu Court, and now the staff from Juyu Court has come to Wuan Court to settle the accounts. Are they chasing for money? How annoying. The staff looked towards the sound and saw Song Qinyan. Recognizing that she is the frequent customer Wuan Marquis Household's young mistress, he smiled and said, Young mistress, I have come to settle not last month's account but the previous accounts, those that should have been settled last month. All right. Song Qinyan interrupted him impatiently. It has been busy in the mansion recently and we don't have time to settle the accounts. Come again when it's the end of the month. Get all the accounts in order and we will settle them together. The staff's mouth curved slightly and a flash of disdain appeared beneath his eyes. These perfunctory statements again. He has heard the same things until he could almost grow earwax. Luckily Juyu Court is now under Murong young mistress and he doesn't need to bother about not offending this demanding lady anymore. Song young mistress, I also know that it is the wrong time to come. But the manager has said that if I cannot settle the accounts this time, he is going to fire me. I have elderly and young dependent on me and cannot lose this job. Please Song young mistress, pity me and settle the accounts. The staff cried as he said that, looking extremely pitiful. People passing by were all attracted by the commotion and gathered in a crowd, pointing, "What is happening? I don't know. It seems like he is asking for payment. If he wants to settle the accounts then just settle it. Why scold him until he's so pitiful? Who asked her to have the Wuan Marquis as her father? Her status is extremely noble. Who would dare to blame her for scolding just a shop staff?" Bits and pieces of discussion was traveled into her ear and Song Qingyan's pretty face immediately turned red in anger. She glared at the public and angrily argued, "I am not scolding him." The crowd was not convinced. She was the only master around there. If she wasn't bullying that person then who else could it be? Song Qingyan was furious. She strode over to the shop staff and grabbed his clothes and pushed him in front of everyone. "Tell everyone that I did not scold you." The staff was caught off guard and fell to the ground. A sharp pain traveled from his elbow making him suck in a breath. He looked up toward Song Qingyan, and said word by word, "I have come today only to collect the debt owed to Juyu Court by the household. Why is Song young mistress making things difficult for me?" Song Qingyan was guilty and her eyes flashed uncomfortably. She impolitely said, "Where did I make things difficult for you? I have already said to let you come again at the end of the month." Upon hearing that, the staff became angry. "Every time I come to Wuan Marquis Mansion to settle the accounts, the staff always give me excuses like that. I dare not trust young mistress' perfunctory statements anymore. Now, Juyu Court has become short of cash because Wuan Marquis household has owed 10 years' worth of debt. We need this cash urgently. Wuan Marquis household has not settled 10 years' worth of accounts." "Is that real?" a commoner said. "Of course it's real. If you don't believe, brother, I will read it to you." The staff quickly took out a copy of account statement and loudly read, "On XX year, XX month, XX day, Wuan Marquis Lady bought a set of southern pearl jewelry, a set of sapphire stone jewelry, a set of pearl jewelry, and a pair of Southen pearl head jewelry, worth 20,000 taels. On XX year, XX month, XX day, Wuan Marquis Lady bought." It's really the date from 10 years ago. Is the list not fake? Who dares to falsify such things to scheme against the Wuan Marquis household? Unless he doesn't want to live anymore, that's true. Juyu Court's reputation is good. The manager is also an honest person. He wouldn't forge such a thing to harm others. The noble Wuan Marquis household takes people's goods and doesn't pay up. When people chase for 10 years' worth of debt, they still try to delay payment. How, sigh. Chapter 22, Bullying Murong Roa. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This Wuan Marquis mansion looks quite grand. It shouldn't be lacking in money, right? Who knows? Maybe they really do not have enough money. Or maybe they have money but do not want to give and are prepared to default on the payment. The character of people in this Wuan Marquis household is really quite bad. Who says it isn't? Everyone's criticisms traveling into all ears. Song Qingyan's beautiful small face turned red. So what if she takes things from Juyu Court? That's her aunt's dowry shop. No matter how much she took, she didn't destroy these people's interest. Why are they so indignant? Slight fury appeared beneath her eyes. She was just prepared to teach everyone a lesson when a middle-aged man rang first. "I am Jingxiu Silk Warehouse's staff. Wuan Marquis household has been buying silk clothing from our warehouse without payment for 10 years. When I come to collect payment at the beginning of every month, they also use all sorts of excuses. Today, I have met Juyu Court staff who are in the same boat." Sigh. I shall also read out of the list to everyone. On XX year, X month, X day, Wuan Marquis Lady bought 2 batches of Shu brocade, 2 batches of Yun brocade, 2 batches of Su embroidered brocade, worth 10,000 taels. On XX year, XX month, XX day, Wuan Marquis Lady bought, me too. I am from the antique goods shop. Wuan Marquis Lady have also been taking quite a bit from the antique goods shop over these 10 years. And similarly has not paid a single cent. Every time I ask for payment, they will make excuses. I have brought the list along now and shall read to everyone as well. 6 shopkeepers representing 6 shops stood in front of the main entrance of the Wuan Marquis mansion in a line, each holding a long list and loudly and clearly reading out the list in measured cadence. The large amount of each item sent people into hysterics. Wuan Marquis household really spends so much. Each of their purchases are close to 10,000 taels worth. Would be willing to buy as much clothing, jewelry and antiques as possible if I could only record my debt and not pay anything. If you don't have money, then don't buy so many things. How can one take things without paying? Wuan Marquis household really is, like street thugs and gangsters. If someone owed me that much money and refused to pay, but continued to take antiques and paintings from my shop, I would have sued them in court. Ridicule and disdainful criticisms came from all sides, scolding Song Qinyan until she didn't dare to look up. Face red, she urgently instructed, Mayor, hurry and go inform my mother, the situation has gotten big and she can't handle it on her own. Yes. The maid Mayor nodded and turned around to go into the mansion when she saw Murong Roa accompanied by a group of maids hurriedly walking over. Her hair was raised high, revealing a beautiful small face that was well taken care of. Her elegant robe was grand and colorful, making her look more elegant and noble. Her red lips were pursed tightly and her cold gaze swept across the line of the 6 shopkeepers. Her beautiful brows tightly frowned. What is going on? The 6 shopkeepers looked at each other. The staff from Zhuyu Court stepped out and bowed deeply towards Murong Roa. Lady Song, we have come to settle the debts. If you want to settle the accounts, go and look for the butler. Why are you making a ruckus here? Murong Roa snapped. After standing in front of the Wuan Marquis mansion entrance and hearing those long lists of accounts, the people of the capital will all know that Wuan Marquis household likes to take things without paying and even owes up to 10 years. Then, the household's face will be all lost. Lady Song, when we looked for the butler previously, he always made excuses and delayed the settlement. These delays have been going on for 10 years. We really have no other choice other than doing it this way. Zhuyu Court staff explained bitterly. That's right, Lady Song. Because we cannot collect these debts, our shops cannot turn around and are almost going to cease operations. I beg you to settle the accounts. The shopkeeper of Jingxiu Silk Warehouse continued, loudly begging. Yes, Lady Song, I beg you. We have elderly and young dependent on us. If the shops close, we have no way of feeding our family. The 6 shopkeepers stood in front of the entrance begging and crying, looking extremely pitiful. The surrounding crowd shook their heads and sighed. Isn't the saying, the creditors are the bosses and debtors are the dogs? How come it's the opposite here? The debtors are the bosses and creditors have become the dogs. Who asked them to be owed to by Wuan Marquis household? The common people cannot fight with the officials. Even if they do fight, they cannot win. I heard that Shuntian Magistrate Court's official Lin is an upright official. If you sue them there, you should be able to seek justice. Official Lin's rank is entirely below Wuan Marquis level. Even if you go to court, it is hard to say, that's true. If the official's rank is high, it can crush people. If Wuan Marquis puts pressure on official Lin's judgment. Sigh, ridicule poured in and attacked them. Murong Roa's face turned scarily dark, and her cold gaze fell onto those 6 shopkeepers. She controlled her temper and gave a false smile with much difficulty. Any accounts with the shops have been managed by the butler. I don't know anything about it. Since the issue has exploded, the reputation of Wuan Marquis household has been damaged. Her mother-in-law and husband will definitely be furious. She needs to take herself out of the equation and can definitely not carry a bad accusation. People were not convinced. Murong Roa holds the reins to Wuan Marquis household's internal affairs. Every month she will check the expenses of the household. She takes so many silk batches, jewelry from the shops, but her butler is not paying for them. Shouldn't she be able to see? Even if she didn't notice, it is forgivable if it's once or twice. But over 10 years, she would have checked the accounts 120 times, and if she didn't notice till now. Hee hee. Even the blind are not as dumb as her. The antique goods store's staff walked up and quietly said, "Lady Song, we do not want to dispute over the debt issue anymore. All we want now is to collect the payment. Please fulfill our wish. Whoever wants to carry the charges of damaging the reputation of the Wuan Marquis household can do so. That has nothing to do with them. Their objective of coming here today is just to collect the debt." Murong Rua's eyes flashed sinisterly and then returned to normal. She smiled lightly and said, "The six of you need not worry. Our household has always seen our reputation as important. The debt that we owe your shops will be returned without a cent missing to all six of you." The crowd was very agitated. If she dared to say a word of rejection, she would drown in their accusations. The six shopkeepers immediately smiled widely and their eyes shone as they looked at Murong Rua. "That's fantastic. Would Lady Song be paying in check or cash?" "We don't have many checks in the mansion, but we do have a lot of cash. However, 10 years of accounts is quite a lot. Given your weak bodies, I'm just afraid that you are not able to carry that much," Murong Rua said smiling, her eyes flashed with sharp coldness. She will first make a promise to replay and disperse the crowd, then she will harshly teach these six incompetent bastards a lesson. Chapter 23, Settling the Debt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "Thank you for your concern, my lady, but we have already prepared for that." Juyu court staff snapped a finger while smiling. From around the corner, dozens of large horse carriages appeared and each carriage was accompanied by 3 or 4 guards in battle robes, holding knives and swords. The managers know that the debt amount is large. To prevent any accidents, they have informed the bank and asked them to bring people and carriages here, and will deposit the money directly into the bank. Murong Rua's face turned green and her fists clenched tightly under her sleeves. They had already guessed she would say that and thus had planned such a trap for her to jump into. How hateful. "Lady Song, can we settle the accounts now?" Juyu court staff softly inquired. His eyes shone with undisguised happiness, making Murong Rua burn in fury. She could not wait to tear this face that was triumphant and provocative. The crowd was watching from the sidelines, so Murong Rua could not kick up a fuss. She held in her anger and said, "Of course. Lawner, bring some to the treasury to withdraw the money." Her calm voice revealed a slight gritting of teeth. "Yes, ma'am." Maid Lawner curtsied and called the 6 shopkeepers at the bottom of the steps. "Gentlemen, please follow me. Thank you for your effort." The 6 shopkeepers politely bowed and invited Huitong Bank staff and strode into the Wuan Marquis mansion. Looking at the way they thought it was in their right to do, Song Qinyan hatefully stomped her feet. She hurriedly walked towards Murong Rua and lowered her voice. "Mother, are we really going to settle all the accounts? We don't have that much money in the mansion." In these recent years, she had often followed Murong Rua in and out of Juyu Court, the silk shop, and had always taken many things each time. It was definitely going to be a huge amount. "I know." Murong Rua's eyes flashed with coldness, but the fact that Wuan Marquis household owes them 10 years' worth of payment will spread widely. If we do not settle the bills completely today, we will prove to them that we do not settle our bills and will be laughed at by the people of capital, ridiculed by the nobles, and everywhere we go we will be pointed at by people until we are not able to walk with our heads high. Wuan Marquis household will not be able to continue staying in the capital. That's serious. Song Qinyan frowned hard and her arrogant little face sank. She grumbled resentfully, "Grandmother is too much. If she wants the money then she should just say. Why did she let the 6 shopkeepers make a scene and make us, Wuan Marquis household, lose face? It will also not reflect well on her. Do you think that Juyu Court and the antique goods shop is still being managed by your grandmother?" Murong Rua glanced at her and scoffed. Song Qinyan paused. "Mother means that Juyu Court, the antiques goods shops and Jinxiu silk warehouse have all changed hands. It might be trouble caused by Murong Shui, that little bitch. Last time she schemed against me and took back all the jewelry I had chosen from my aunt's dowry. This time she's even worse, she actually schemed against the entire Wuan Marquis household, don't say so much. Murong Ruo waved her hand and interrupted her. She took out a bunch of keys from her sleeve and gave it her, quickly go to the treasury and take out that set of jade jewelry, southern pearl jewelry, and red emerald jewelry, bring them to Duobao court and exchange them for cash. Song Qinyan listened to the list of jewelry names and widened her eyes in shock. Mother, those are your dowry. You liked them the most. And she had even promised that when she got married, they would be given to her as her dowry. How can they be sold? For 10 years we have taken at least 1,000,000 taels worth of goods from Juyu Court and those 6 shops. The money we have in the mansion, including the checks, will not add up to that much. We must pawn these jewelry to gather up the money, Murong Ruo said quietly. Her eyes flashed coldly and she lightly patted Song Qinyan's shoulder. Don't worry. When we overcome the hurdle in front of us, Mother will redeem all of them to give them to you for your dowry. All right. Song Qinyan nodded. Holding the key, she reluctantly walked towards the treasury. Murong Ruo looked at the guards from Huitong Bank walking here and there. The handkerchief in her hands were twisted into knots and her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. When Qinyan was forced by Murong Shui to return Chen's jewelry, she had thought that it was just an argument between little girls and did not take notice. She never imagined that only a few days later, Murong Shui had not only snatched the shop deeds away from her mother, but had also attacked her unexpectedly, forcing her to return everything that she had swallowed from the 6 shops, and even damaged her reputation, causing her to lose face in front of everyone. What a good trick. This weak and sickly niece of hers is definitely not a simple character. It seems like she needs to find a time to return to the Murong Marquis mansion and meet this niece that she has never taken a good look at before. Bright sunlight shone onto the water surface, reflecting bits of golden light. A light breeze caressed and brought with it a sky filled with raining flower petals. Murong Shui wore a pink robe made of thin cloth and gracefully sat in front of the round table underneath the viburnum flower tree. She sipped lightly at her tea and casually counted the bills. The 6 managers stood not far off from her and looked at the large amounts on those bills. They did have not envy or jealousy in their eyes, just respect. They had used all sorts of ways to demand payment over the last 10 years and could not make Wuan Marquis household spit up even a cent. Once Murong Shui's plan was carried out, Wuan Marquis household had hurriedly returned all the money owed. So brilliant. When they stood at the corner of the street and saw the carts of silver taels being pulled to Huitong Bank, they were still stunned. Wuan Marquis household had so much money yet they kept delaying on their payment. What terrible character they have. When they left the street corner, they heard people discussing and criticizing how bad a character the people of Wuan Marquis household have. The debt has been entirely settled. All of you have put in hard work. This money is to award everyone. Managers, staff, everyone has a share. Murong Shui finished calculating the bills and confirmed that there was no error before taking out 6 bills and putting them onto the table. The 6 managers walked up one by one and picked up the bill. When they saw the amount on the bills, they all smiled brightly. Thank you so much, young mistress. After managing the shops for so many years, this is the first time they have seen so much bonus. Young mistress is so generous. If the shop's profits for this year is 10% more than last year, I will also give all of you a huge bonus at the end of the year. Murong Shui smiled lightly, like 100 flowers blooming. The manager's eyes immediately shone. Young mistress is generous. If she says that the bonus is huge, it will definitely be not a small amount of taels. Thank you very much, young mistress. We will definitely do our best in managing the shops and will definitely not disappoint young mistress. The managers solemnly promised and walked out of Luoxue court full of thanks. Murong Yi quickly walked forward and looked at the thick wad of bills, full of astonishment. Sister, how did you manage to think of such a method to collect the debt? His sister had easily resolved what was causing the managers such a huge headache. Even he had thought hard but couldn't find a solution. It was brilliant. Murong Shui took a sip of tea, her eyes bright and active. Wuan Marquis household is a noble family and places great importance on their reputation. They will definitely not allow any blemishes on themselves. When I asked the shopkeepers to read the accounts at the entrance of Wuan Marquis mansion, it would be airing their dirty laundry. If Wuan Marquis household did not wish to continue having their dirty laundry aired, then they would obediently pay up. I see. Murong Yi nodded with half-understanding. His gaze turned bright at the sight of the thick wad of bills. Sister, since you have so much money, give me 10,000 taels to spend please. Chapter 24, Cold Poison. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You need money to go to the Colosseum to battle dogs. Murong Shui glanced at him, her voice soft. That's right. Murong Yi nodded and acknowledged with hesitation. He didn't have any money in his hands these few days and had stayed at home bored. He is almost bored till ill now. Murong Shui's gaze hardened and she leisurely said, it's not that you cannot have the money, however, there's no free meal in this world. I cannot give you this money for free. We have to make an exchange. This complacent fella. All he knows how to do is battle dogs. Even if she has a lot of money, she will not give it so easily. What do you want to exchange it with? Murong Yi smiled and asked. As long as the terms are not too harsh, he can agree. Murong Shui picked up a book on the table and threw it to him. Memorize all the contents in this book and I'll give you 10,000 taels. She had picked up that book when she was bored and had just flipped 2 pages, much to Murong Yi's convenience. Murong Yi caught the book and looks down towards it only to see 2 big words on its cover, the Analects of Confucius. He flipped open the cover and saw the page filled with complex terms, until his head felt like it grew big. His confident and handsome face immediately turned sour. Sister, the words on this pages looks like rows of identical flies to me. They don't know me and I don't recognize them either. Just stop making it difficult for me, will you? Murong Shui's bright face immediately darkened. How much does Murong Yi hate reading books if he is using flies to represent words? Then go and find Uncle Hui and ask him to teach you 10 steps. When you have learnt these 10 steps, you can find me and take the 10,000 taels from me. If Murong Yi doesn't like to learn from texts, then it wouldn't be of any use even if she forces him to. Then let him learn martial arts. Uncle Hui's martial arts skills are not bad and can definitely teach Murong Yi. Hearing her, Murong Yi frowned harder and pitifully said, Uncle Hui only knows how to ask me to do squats and more squats, when he teaches. I have learned from him for 10 years and he has only just finished teaching me a full set of 49 moves. If I have to learn another 10 more new moves, it will take another 2 years and I will be bored to death. Murong Shui's beautiful and small face immediately turned black until it was almost dripping with ink. Squats are the basics of martial arts. Uncle Hui wants him to build a good foundation, that's why he asked him to do more squats and he actually resents it for being too boring. What an idiot. Uncle Hui used 10 years to teach him 49 steps not because he didn't want to teach martial arts but because Murong Yi is lazy and has a weak foundation. Uncle Hui was worried that if he taught too much, it might harm his body. Learning gives a headache, martial arts is tiring, these are definitely not as relaxing as fighting dogs. This lazy fella really knows how to enjoy life and live it as leisurely as possible. But her money is obtained through headaches and tiresome work, he can't expect it to be leisure. Murong Shui looked up and was just about to lecture him when suddenly a sharp pain came about in her chest. Her bright and small face immediately turned pale with no color and beads of sweat poured down her forehead. Sister, what's wrong? Seeing that there was something wrong with her, Murong Yi took a step forward and supported her elbow. The tips of his fingers touched her exposed wrist and it was cold but hardly any temperate. His face immediately turned, your cold poison is acting up. Hong Xiu, Anmei, quickly go and get the medication. Yes. Hong Xiu and Anmei was used to this situation and repeatedly acknowledged before hurriedly running towards the room. Their demure faces did not reveal a hint of panic. Moroni took out Morong Shue's handkerchief from near her wrist and gently wiped the cold sweat from her forehead, gently like the wind consoling her, "Sister, don't be afraid, you'll be fine after eating the medication." Morong Shue nodded with difficulty. In the original person's memory, she had experienced multiple times where the cold poison had acted up. Each time it was very painful, but once she had eaten the medication, the pain would disappear very quickly. "Ah, ah," two screams rang one after another. Moroni looked up towards the source only to see a man in black with a black mask run out of the Morong Shue's room tightly holding an ebony box in his arms. Anxiang collapsed against the door, her demure face white as paper, and used all her strength to shout, "Young master! He has snatched young mistress medication." Morong Ye's black jade-like eyes immediately narrowed. With a tap of the points of his feet, his thin silhouette appeared behind the man in black and he raised his palm to put down the medication. As though the man in black did not hear, he stepped to the side to avoid Morong Ye's attack and they started fighting. At that moment, two silhouettes, one black and one blue, jumped up and down, left and right, and battled closely. The sharp wind from the fight shook the leaves on the trees till they were rustling. The man in black was an adult male and was not bad in martial arts. He was quick, harsh and accurate, and every move was forceful and unforgiving. Obviously he was very experienced. His moves and body combined into one. On the other hand, Morong Ye was still young and inexperienced, his martial arts moves were stiff and obviously were unpracticed. Against the enemy, they lacked creativity in their use and flexibility, and thus he was slowly becoming the losing side. His moves became messy and the strength he used was also halved. Hurried steps rang, it was the mansion guards rushing over. The man in black did not want to continue fighting and his palm hit towards Morong Ye's chest to seriously injure him and take the opportunity to escape. Morong Shue's eyes turned cold and she endured the sky-high pain level as she pulled out the short sword at her waist and leapt towards the man in black. After hitting his palm away, she continuously waved her sword and in the harsh cold light, pierced a few wounds into his left shoulder. "Hurry, the assassin is there. Don't let him get away." The mansion guards ran into the courtyard and surrounded them. Morong Shue and Morong Ye surrounded the man in black at the front and back. The man had been seriously injured and definitely could not escape. The man in black's eyes turned cold and he slapped against the ebony box in his arms. "Pa!" The exquisite box immediately turned to dust and the porcelain bottles and its medication was slapped into dust as well, and drifted towards the ground mixing with the brown soil. "Fire lotus, sisters, fire lotus." Morong Ye scooped up a fist of powder but it was mixed in with more soil, wood and porcelain powder, with the medication powder barely noticeable. This black eyes immediately turned red and he harshly kicked the man in black, and countless fists mercilessly fell under his body. "Compensate for our fire lotus, my sister needs it to save her life." The man in black lowered his head, his expression stern, and did not say a word. Morong Shue's whole body was in sharp pain and her throat was dry. She could not help but cough a few times before weakly saying, "Brother, stop hitting him. He is a kamikaze warrior and will not say anything." "Kamikaze warrior." Morong Ye paused and his black eyes narrowed. He grabbed the front of the man in black and furiously said, "It's Yi Chen that instructed you to steal the fire lotus, right? Don't deny. Other than Prince Jing household and the Marquis household, no one else knows that my sister has been poisoned with cold poison and needs the fire lotus to save her life." Chapter 25, Blood Spilt in Prince Jing's Mansion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Morong Shue wasn't born weak and sickly, but when she was 4 years old, she was poisoned with cold poison, which is strong and potent. When it attacks, it will make the person feel like dying, and Qingyan's physicians had wrecked their brains but have not been able to figure out a way to get rid of it completely. They could only control it using the cold poison's natural enemy, the fire lotus. After Morong Shue was poisoned, Morong Yu had prevented the news from leaking. Only Murong Yu and his wife, Murong Yi and his sister, the old Prince Jing, and Yi Chen knows this secret. The man in black continued to look down and remained silent. A flash of cold sharpness passed through Murong Ye's eyes and he grabbed the collar of the man in black, harshly pushed him to the ground and stamped on his chest before turning around and striding out without looking back. "Brother, where are you going?" Murong Shui softly questioned, her voice weak. "To Prince Jing's mansion to look for Yi Chen." Murong Yi answered furiously without stopping or turning around. Murong Shui raised her eyebrows. "What are you looking for him for? He will not admit that he is behind this. Even if he does not admit, I will also want to go to Prince Jing's mansion to meet him. I can't let him bully us and get away with it." Murong Yi said with his teeth clenched and strode out of Shualua court. Murong Shui's body felt like a million needles poking and she was covered in cold sweat. Her slim body staggered and she almost fell. Maid Anxiang quickly walked forward and carefully supported her arm. "Young mistress, let me support you." "No need. Bring the man in black and follow me to Prince Jing's mansion." Murong Shui's eyes was cold. Prince Jing's mansion is Yi Chen's mansion. Yi Chen and her has had many conflicts and she is worried about letting Murong Yi going there alone. Moreover, after the meeting at the cliff, she was busy dealing with Du and Murong Ro and didn't really take notice about Yi Chen. It is time to meet that high-ranking and powerful ex-fiancé. Prince Jing Mansion. Yi Chen wore a golden-purple silk robe and stood in an octagonal pavilion in a painting stance. In his hand held a wolf tail brush that was moving quickly. Bright Chinese roses appeared on the white rice paper as though they were going to leap out of the paper. Thinking about that person that likes Chinese roses, his mouth unconsciously curved into an elegant smile. After finishing this painting, he will give it to her, and she will definitely like it a lot. "Young Marquis, this is Prince Jing's mansion, you cannot barge in, scram. I want to see Yi Chen." "Sorry, my lord, but without His Highness' orders, no one can casually come into the mansion. I have a very important thing to discuss with him. If you delay it, can you take responsibility?" Hey, what are you doing? Don't pull me." "Yi Chen, come out, come out." Intense arguing traveled into his ears and Yi Chen frowned unhappily. He looked up only to see Murong Yi furiously trying to barge into the mansion and 3 or 4 Prince Jing mansion guards tightly grabbing onto his arms and dragging him out. He has come to Prince Jing's mansion so early, how fast is he? Yi Chen's mouth curved into a barely noticeable smile and he lightly waved his hands. The guards got the message and released Murong Yi, moving to the side. Murong Yi walked into the pavilion, his face black. He held up his hands towards Yi Chen and uncourteously said, "Yi Chen, bring out the fire lotus." Fire lotus is produced from the Fire Cloud Mountain. The Fire Cloud Mountain is in the Yunnan territories, and Yunnan is the Prince Jing's household's fief. After the fire lotus is harvested, most of it is kept in the Prince Jing mansion and only a little makes its way out. The fire lotus bloomed every 5 years and only bears fruit every 5 years, thus its production volume is very little. The fire lotus that Murong Shui used to use were gradually brought by Murong Yu and Gu Hui from various large medical shops. Now it has all been destroyed by the man in black's hands. In such a short period of time, Murong Yi cannot find enough fire lotus for Murong Shui to use and therefore can only request it from the Prince Jing household. Yi Chen lowered his eyes and continued painting elegantly. His young and handsome face was so attractive that people could not look away. "What gives you the right to demand for the fire lotus in Prince Jing's mansion? Just because you sent someone to destroy my sister's fire lotus." Murong Yi furiously glared at him. "If those fire lotuses were okay, my sister would be fine, and I wouldn't have to bother coming to the Prince Jing mansion to look for you. Murong Shui's fire lotus is destroyed because of the lack of capability in your household, and you had not kept it properly. What does that have to do with me?" Yi Chen said lightly. Murong Yi gritted his teeth in anger. I can't be bothered to argue with you. Just tell me, are you going to give me the fire lotus?" Murong Shui has already proposed annulling the marriage. Now, Prince Jing and the Marquis households have nothing to do with each other. It's not right to give you the fire lotus. Yi Chen casually said, his voice soft. After all that you have said, you just want to take my sister as concubine. My sister did not agree, thus you used such despicable means to force her into submission. Don't you think you are too shameless? My sister's cold poison has already acted up, and if she doesn't take the fire lotus by midnight tonight, she will die from the pain. Murong Yi stared at him, his eyes ablaze with fire. Yi Chen did not contradict what he had said, and lightly questioned, now that Murong Shui is my ex-fiancée, what does her life or death got to do with me, you? Murong Yi choked from anger and his handsome face turned red. He has realized that Yi Chen will not ever give him the fire lotus, and it is useless to continue arguing with him. If Prince Jing's things cannot be given, we can buy it. Please tell me the price. Even if you want mountains of gold or silver, I will give them to you as requested. The Prince Jing household does not lack in money. No matter how much you offer, I will not sell the fire lotus. If Murong Shui wants to use the fire lotus, there's only one way, that is to marry into the Prince Jing household and be my concubine. At the last few words, Yi Chen emphasized them. Upon hearing that, Murong Ye's face turned black and his gaze so furious that it could almost spit fire. Yi Chen pretended not to see it and looked at the sky before kindly suggesting, you still have 4 more hours to consider. There's no need to consider anymore. I can give Prince Jing an answer now. Murong Shui walked towards them lightly supported by Anxiang. Her clear voice was dry and hoarse and beautiful, and small face was pale without color. Her slim and weak body looked like it could be felled by the wind, but her eyes flashed with strength and stubbornness. Emphasizing every word, she said, I would rather die than become your highness concubine. Yi Chen's paused mid-painting and his face turned scarily black, and a dark look flashed across his eyes. Murong Shui pretended not to see and grabbed the man in black behind her and pulled him to the front of Yi Chen, and said, smiling, this person is the culprit that destroyed my fire lotus. He is up to no good and is making me die. I can't find the person behind him, so let him accompany me in death. Upon saying that, Murong Shui flipped her wrist and a sharp hair-pin drew a long and thin opening on his neck. Red blood spurted every direction and gracefully splattered on the silver pillars, the bright red of it glaring. The man stiffened for a moment, then collapsed onto the ground. His eyes were wide but dead and gray within. Golden sunlight shone onto the tip of the hairpin, reflecting glaringly. Strong blood smell drifted away, making people's hair stand and fear arise in them. Chapter 26, Provocation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sorry for the delay. We will soon come in routine 1 chapter per day. This chapter is translated by another translator. Yi Chen's face was livid. At that moment, Murong Shui knew the assassin was sent by him. As she couldn't get any useful information from the assassin, she would kill him in front of Yi Chen. What a provocative and demonstrative move by her. Yi Chen had been leading troops to war for so many years, but it was the first time he had met someone who dared to provoke him. She is really audacious and extremely hateful. Let's go, brother. Murong Shui gently wiped her blood-stained hairpin with a silk handkerchief, and she turned over slowly. But Prince Jing is a busy person and he has to deal with a lot of things daily. Let's try not to interrupt him and just go. Murong Shui interrupted the words coming from Murong Yi with a smile, held his arm, and dragged him out of the house. Yi Chen was looking gloomy and horrible as he stared at Murong Shui's slim figure that was walking away without any hesitation. He suddenly raised his arm and swept all the stationery that was on the table onto the ground. The calligraphy paper was soaked with the blood on the ground. Through the white paper, the flirtatious red of the blood was stinging and eye-catching. He kept his gaze on Murong Shui, watching her figure gradually disappear from his vision. Suddenly, he got a strange feeling and wanted to get angry. How dare she just walks away like that? Completely disregarding her ongoing seizures from the cold poison, she is not afraid of the dreadful pain. Su Tianyu came forward, watching Murong Shue's staggering yet physically straight figure, walking with messy but orderly pace, and asked, "Prince, are we pushing them too far?" "What do you mean?" Murong Shue and Murong Yi are both 14 years old. They are still young, yet they have been through tremendous tragedies. Hence, they are like frightened birds, they always tend to protect themselves from others. If we keep using persecution method, I'm afraid we will naturally arouse their fury. Su Tianyu had never been victim of cold poison. But he heard that cold poison is unforgiving and incurable. It can only be suppressed by eating fire lotus seeds, or else the person will be tortured with an excruciating pain to death. I suggest we try approaching them with kindness, let them know Prince will not bring harm to them. Yi Chen has his own plan, he has a reason for wanting to marry Murong Shue, but definitely not to their life. Now Murong Yi is still young and he is not capable. He can't compete with Du, the dowager. No longer than few years, Du will definitely take over the town of Ho, and when that time comes, he cannot guarantee Murong Yi can stay alive. But if Murong Shue agrees to marry Yi Chen as his second wife, Murong Yi will be Yi Chen's brother-in-law. He can protect him from any danger and Murong Yi can live in wealth. Meanwhile, Murong Shue will have endless fire lotus seeds. She won't be tortured by the pain of the cold poison and can have an extended life. How come Murong Shue refuses to stick to such a perfect plan which is beneficial to both her and her brother? She may feel insulted to be someone's second wife, but how can this outweigh her life? Prince, they are not far away from us. I shall call them back, and explain it to them. Su Tianyu had no intention of explaining the whole picture to those siblings. He merely wanted to persuade Murong Shue into marrying Yi Chen. Not necessary. Yi Chen shook his head in disagreement. The return of Murong Shue will only cause disputes between her and Yu Yuan, as she wants to become First Lady Princess only. Murong Shue will die if she doesn't consume fire lotus seeds. She deserves it, but it is not worth if your plan is going to spoil due to her death. Said Su Tianyu. Everyone is afraid of death. No matter how stubborn she is, she will not dare to step into the gate of hell, and she will definitely return before midnight. At that moment, she will lose her bargaining power, then her name and her status at Jing Palace will be decided by me. The sun was disappearing from the horizon. Murong Shue leaned on Murong Yi as they walked out of Jing Palace. Murong Yi turned back, took a glance on the plaque on which was written 3 bronze characters, Jing Palace, he said with unwillingness. Sister, are you sure we are leaving? Murong Shue's voice tinged with sadness. It doesn't help to stay in here, as Yi Chen will not give me the fire lotus seed. If the cold poison persisted, the consequences would be unimaginable. Murong Yi spoke softly. Jing Palace is probably the only place within the entire capital where we can find fire lotus seed. I am weak and useless as I can't even get a single life-saving pill for you. Do not worry, there must be a way out. Murong Shue tried to comfort his brother, as she patted his shoulder. You might be right, but you need to take the fire lotus seed within the next 3 hours. Murong Shue looked pale. We have searched most pharmacies in the capital. No matter how capable I am, I certainly won't able to find a fire lotus seed within 3 hours. The fire lotus seed is efficient, but there must be an alternative way to reduce the toxicity of the cold poison, for example, acupuncture or decoction. Murong Yi disagreed. These methods have long been tested by well-known doctors, their effect is minimal, to survive you must consume the fire lotus seed. Murong Shue touched her eyebrow, she had seen in a modern medical book, acupuncture could be used to cure any kind of poison. Since cold poison is also a kind of poison, how can it be incurable? Sister, what are you thinking? Murong Yi was extremely worried as he noticed her sister was unconsciously frowning. Nothing. Murong Shue smiled gently. Brother, does the capital have hot springs? Hot springs? Yes, why? Murong Yi got puzzled. Murong Shue smiled mysteriously. I have my own ways. The night had fallen. Jing Palace was lightening up, all of the corpses had been removed, and the residue of blood was wiped clean. There was a gold fragrance furnace located at the corner for eliminating the unpleasant smell of the blood in the air. On the table, the sand inside a transparent hourglass was flowing down. Yi Chen was sitting at the stone table, holding a book, looking intentionally or unintentionally at the door of Jing Palace. The red door was left open, there was no one apart from the guard. Yi Chen felt irritated, he looked at the hourglass and his face turned gloomy. It's midnight soon, and Murong Shue has not returned yet, she really is not afraid of death. The sand was flowing and accumulating slowly. It indicated midnight was getting closer. Yi Chen suddenly stood up, he picked up a white porcelain pot which contained fire lotus seed and strode out. Su Tianyu was stunned. Prince, where are you going? If you want to support this translation, but can't donate, consider adding us to your ad blockers whitelist. We take intrusive ads very seriously, please contact us if you come across a malicious ad. Chapter 27, Goodbye Ouyang Xiaochen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Go to the town of Ho's house, and look for Murong Shue now. I need her assistance to complete my plan, she cannot die yet. Su Tianyu felt relieved after hearing those commands. He was aware that Murong Shue was important for them to achieve their plan. If Murong Shue died, they would face a lot of difficulties. So, Yi Chen taking the initiative to find Murong Shue was great. Prince, you can send any subordinate to find Murong Shue, you do not need to go in person. Yi Chen unconsciously thought Murong Shue might have been poisoned to death. He felt inexplicably irritated, he wished to see her immediately with fire lotus seeds. It's better for me to remind her in person. Su Tianyu nodded to Yi Chen in agreement. Prince, Murong Shue is not in the town of Ho's house. Where is she then? Is she in medical hall, looking for her doctor to cure her cold poison? She would not be so dumb to believe that cold poison can be cured without fire lotus seeds, right? She is in Hot Spring Villa. Su Tianyu spilled it out, word by word. Hot Spring Villa. What is she doing there? This night was chilling. Murong Yi was standing on the shore, holding a rabbit design lamp with one hand, and leaning on Murong Shue with the other hand. While staring at the hot waves of the hot springs, he had a lot of doubt in his mind. Sister, what are we doing here? To eliminate cold poison. Can hot springs eliminate cold poison? Murong Yi was surprised. Murong Shue smiled. According to modern research, soaking in hot springs can eliminate fatigue and illnesses, ease pain, as well as soften and whiten the skin. Of course, I can't eliminate the cold poison in my body by merely soaking in the hot spring, but with the aid of acupuncture there is a chance. Really? Murong Yi felt skeptical about this method. Of course, did I ever fool you before? Murong Shue said it gently. Murong Yi raised his eyebrows. Yes, he knew his sister would never lie to him. But we have no doctor, nor silver needles for acupuncture. It doesn't matter, I had seen the acupuncture points of the human body, and I remember their locations accurately. For the needle. Murong Shue removed the comb from her hair and scattered it into numerous skeleton roots. I will use these instead. Are you sure? Murong Yi looked at the thin silver pieces. Murong Shue smiled and patted Murong Yi's shoulder, then carefully told him. You are my lookout, do not let others come to bother me. Looking at her eyes glittering confidently, Murong Yi started to believe his sister. Then I will be waiting and guarding outside the woods, if anything happens, shout my name loudly. Okay. Murong Shue nodded. After watching Murong Yi pass through the woods, she untied her waist ribbon and slipped out of her long skirt, jumped into the hot spring pool in her underwear. The warm spring water surrounded her, the hot steam was pervasive, infiltrating through her skin. The pain in her body subsided. Murong Shui felt relieved, but she was aware that soaking in the hot spring can only temporarily restrain the poison, and not eliminate it. She held one of the silver needles with her white and small hand. The sharp needle tip reflected the moonlight. For acupuncture treatment, silver needles needed to be stung accurately on various acupuncture points. Murong Shui tried some new acupuncture points, hoping it would help her to eliminate the cold poison and to save her life. "Who is there?" "It's me." It was a beautiful male voice which sounded familiar. Murong Shui looked around attentively, saw a young man approaching her slowly. His white underwear had been soaked in water and was tightly attached to his body. He had broad shoulders, a narrow waist profile, and a good-looking face. He was Ouyang Xiaochen. "Why are you here?" Murong Shui stared at him in surprise. She felt shy and merely exposed her head and neck above the water. Due to the hot steam, he wouldn't be able to see Murong Shui's body as long as he stood 2 to 3 meters away from her. "This hot spring villa is owned by my family. What's so strange about me being here?" Ouyang Xiaochen said clearly with a smile. Murong Shui was stunned. How come her brother didn't remind her of this? If she knew this hot spring villa belonged to Xiaoyao family, she would think twice. As she had been granted access to the hot springs by the steward, she didn't think she was in the wrong. "Your family owns so many hot springs, why would you be here?" "Murong Shui looks beautiful when she is angry," Ouyang Xiaochen said softly. "I have been here for a quarter of an hour, and you have just arrived." Murong Shui choked. She realized she couldn't blame him. "Why did you keep quiet then?" Fortunately, Murong Shui did not get naked. Ouyang Xiaochen casually said. "I was sleeping until I heard the splashing sound of water." "You?" She didn't believe that. How come the conversation between her and her brother did not wake Ouyang Xiaochen up, but the splashing sound of the water did? Both of them stared at each other, looking at those obsidian dot-like pupils of their eyes. Murong Shui was stunned. Would Ouyang Xiaochen still remember that last time when she purposely ruined his chess game? She thought it would be better for her to get away immediately. She grabbed her skirt and put it on. When she was preparing to leave the shore, all of a sudden she was pulled back by a huge force. She stumbled back a few steps and fell into the hot spring. Ouyang Xiaochen. Murong Shui's hair and clothes got all wet. As her wet clothes clung to her slim figure, she fiercely glared at Ouyang Xiaochen. Chapter 28, The Meeting Between Love Rivals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A pair of dark pupils of falcon-like, sharp and penetrating eyes. Indifferent, resembling the unfathomable depths of an abyss which takes in all things, harboring 100 of rivers, swallowing people in a stream of nostalgia, never to return again to touch the shore. Those eyes belong to a prestigious man. He is elegant but at the same time possesses a sense of danger. It is for her own good to stay away from him as far as she can. The moment Murong Shui made an appraisal of Ouyang Xiaochen, with no time for her to react, he was already standing in front of her as he reached out with his long arms, surrounding her between him and a pool wall. He lowered his gaze to look at her, his deep eyes roamed across the night. Where to now? A warm breath was let out on her cheek, the fog circulated in the air as though a mystifying bamboo lingering around her body. Murong Shui swayed her sight unnaturally. Ouyang Xiaochen's power is a lot stronger than hers. Furthermore, she is his captive, there is absolutely zero chance for her to escape from him. They both live in the same city, but they have never stumbled across each other. This little grudge between them will never be dissolved if left unsettled. It shall be settled this time, for once and for all. Murong Shui held her head high, facing Ouyang Xiaochen. She uttered word by word. Ouyang Xiaochen, it's only a game of chess that I had ruined and you still have resentment for it since then. Those fingerprint bruise on her arm was caused by him, she had to apply medicine several times before the mark faded away. Even then there were shallow traces of the bruise left, but never did she resent him. So much for the forbearance of a man. Ouyang's impression of Murong Shui had been that she had an always cold and indifferent demeanor, as if there was nothing in this world that could interest her. This time it was indeed rare sight of her getting agitated. His mood became unusually pleasant, his lips cornering slightly to the side, forming a graceful curve. The royals is indeed that petty. You. Murong Shui grasped for words for a second as she stared at him furiously. Stingy freak, weirdo. It was already broken at that time when she saw the chess. If Ouyang Xiaochen changed his manner towards her, she might help him to retrieve and recover that chess set, but with his attitude now. She couldn't bother less, let him ponder alone. That set of chess was an exquisite artwork. It was precious. You have destroyed it along with my painstaking effort, and by rightful speaking, I should teach you a painful lesson, but considering you are but a weak lady, I can show you some mercy and not take my revenge. As long as you accept my terms, then the grudges between us will be written off once and for all. Ouyang Xiaochen spoke leisurely. His eyes were showing an incomprehensible expression. What is the condition? Murong Shui's gaze stiffened. As a crown prince, Ouyang Xiaochen possesses wealth and power. A nabobism which mortals can only dream of, riches, gold, jewelry, diamonds and powerful connections. There is nothing material in this world that he lacks. The condition that he proposed must be not simple. Under the moonlight, Murong Shui's face had taken a rosy red color, heated by the steam from the hot spring. The hot air had formed two translucent water drops residing on her long eyelashes and the misty fog concealed her dark pupils. Her fair, soft skin radiated a glowing luster. Her red belly band had become transparent upon contact with water and was exposing her body, as if there was nothing on her skin. Her uncovered delicate neck and collarbone were visible, conjuring a tempting attraction. Her cherry-red lips were pursed up slightly as though it was an invitation for a gentleman to collect. Ouyang Xiaochen's pupils dilated instantly. He bent down slowly, touching the thin prints of his lips gently on her pink lips. The mild and soft touch of the lips left Murong Shui stunned. Her mind went blank and only after a long while she could retrieve her composure back while beholding his handsome look. Her gaze trembled, she pushed him aside and shouted angrily. Ouyang Xiaochen, what are you doing? Ouyang Xiaochen was prepared, so he was only pushed 2 steps backwards by her before coming to a stop. Her distinguished fragrance remained on his lips. It was a pleasant aroma and taste. He welcomed the infuriated looks from her beautiful eyes. The corners of his mouth curved into a perfect angle. This was my condition. But I made no compliance. How dare you just. Murong Shui was infuriated. Who was the one who said this unfettered prince is a mature and has good manners? Show yourself, I'll ensure not to kill him. Murong Shui gasped. He didn't mention the condition a moment ago, how is she supposed to oppose? As she was clenching her teeth bitterly and preparing to argue with him, suddenly a strong and sharp pain emerged from her chest. The pain spread quickly all over her body. The great pain and frosty feeling moved through her tendons, covered instantly all over her body. Her tiny face turned pale instantly, big drops of sweat exuded from her forehead and her eyebrows creased tightly. Ouyang Xiaochen looked stern. What is happening to you? My cold poison is breaking out. Murong Shui said stammeringly, paying no attention to Ouyang Xiaochen anymore. She turned sideways to face the shore and saw only an empty area without a trace of the silver threads of the wasted bead. It must be lost when she was inside the hot spring. The water from the hot spring is fluid and moving, those silver threads must have been driven out by the flow and now she can't use the silver threads to exude the cold poison. Murong Shui grabbed the hairpin on the shore. She concentrated her gaze and made a forceful effort with the hairpin towards her left hand wrist. What are you doing? Ouyang Xiaochen moved a step forward, extending his hand to grab her right hand wrist to prevent her suicide. Dispelling my blood that contains the toxin. Murong Shui speaks unhurriedly, the sound of her voice crumbling. After a person gets poisoned, the toxin stays in the person's blood. Dispelling the blood also means disposing the toxin inside. However, the toxicity of the cold poison is potent. She has to bleed off at least half of her blood only so she can survive tonight. Ouyang Xiaochen creased his eyebrows. Your body is very weak, excessive loss of blood will cost your life. Murong Shui's face had a smile. She already knew what he said to her, the cold poison inside my body is circulating in my tendons. Any moment now, it will explode my blood vessels. If I don't release my blood, I will die immediately. Don't worry, I won't let you die. Ouyang Xiaochen's obsidian-like eye pupils appeared in front of Murong Shui's eyes. His slender, long arms embraced her slim waist lightly, pulling her close to his chest. Murong Shui's soft and tender body stayed close to Ouyang Xiaochen's chest, between them were only thin clothing. She could feel clearly his strong and muscular body. Her heart trembled for a while and she struggled subconsciously. Ouyang Xiaochen, what are you trying to do? I am helping you dispel the toxin. Ouyang Xiaochen said those words calmly. His left hand grabbed both of her wrists effortlessly, stopping her struggle, whereas his right hand was placed on and followed her waistline and slipped into her back. Suddenly Murong Shui's body became stiff. Her outer skirt fell into the hot spring. Now she was left with her belly band and pants. Also, the belly band was made with 2 strands at the nape of the neck and waist, her back was entirely exposed. Moreover, Ouyang Xiaochen's palm was pressing the strands on her neck, with only a slight effort, her whole belly band would drop off. You are not a doctor, how are you helping me to dispel the toxin? After the previous incident, Murong Shui did not dare trust in Ouyang Xiaochen's moral character. She made an effort to struggle in order to get away from him. Do not worry, if I say I can help then I can. Ouyang Xiaochen held her small waist tightly as an endogenic force was transferred rapidly to her via his palm placed on her back. In an instant, Murong Shui felt warm currents all over her body, relieving her veins that had caused the ache and wrecking pain. BL.net Murong Shui was startled for a little while, then stopped to struggle. She could immediately feel the warmth of the hot spring together with the endogenic force penetrating her flesh, sweeping the irritating pain and cold poison, inch by inch. The cold poison dispersed and cleansed gradually by the united force. The warm feeling from the hot spring flowed forth inside her blood, the endogenic force transmitted from her back also transferred the intermittent warm feeling. There was an indescribable satisfaction from that occurring. The Murong Shui's agitated heart had calmed down instantaneously, and following that, an intermittent exhaustion came. She closed her eyes slowly, a light black bamboo fragrant lingering on the tip of her nose, posing inexplicable feeling of being at ease. The person under his chest had been quietly and peacefully staying there. Ouyang Xiaochen lowered his head to look. He saw Murong Shui in his arms, with her eyes closed, her long eyelashes like tiny fans, casting 2 thick shadows on her eyelids, the wings of her nose opening and closing according to her regular breathing. Her peaceful and tranquil appearance made one's mind to move. Ouyang Xiaochen unbearably stretched his hand out, the moment he touched her exquisite small face, an angry male voice penetrated the clouds, resounded through the skies. What are you two doing? Chapter 29, The Battle Between Love Rivals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A purple figure flew by in the dark night, landing gracefully to the side of the spring. The tall and upright stature, pretty and handsome face, it was no other than the Crown Prince of Qin, Yi Chen. He stared at Ouyang Xiaochen and Murong Shui in the hot spring with his pair of eyes burning with raging flames. He wanted them burned to death. Ouyang Xiaochen moved with a sense of alertness. He grabbed the soaking long skirt in the water, put it on over Murong Shui's delicate body, covering her exposed flesh. He uncourteously called. Crown Prince of Qin, this is a place where you are not welcomed, please leave immediately. Save your breath Ouyang royals, I, the Crown Prince have found the person I'm looking for and I shall leave without delay. Yi Chen has experienced Ouyang Xiaochen's martial arts skills and tricks before. Moreover, this compound is situated in his palace. It is inadvisable to have a conflict here with Ouyang Xiaochen and shouldn't even be bothered. He appeared here only because of the person he's looking for. Murong Shui, come here. He has been concerned about her poison attack. Night after night he wanted to send her the fire lotus seed, but to his surprise, she is with Ouyang Xiaochen, gathering together in a hot spring and snuggling in intimacy. It is extremely distasteful. The forceful command pierced through the eardrums of Murong Shui. She creased her eyebrows wanting to return words, but she had forgotten about her soft and feeble body, which had no strength left. No matter how hard she tried, her heavy eyelids wouldn't open. Her heart sighed helplessly, giving up on retaliation. She curled up inside Ouyang Xiaochen's chest in idleness, even her eyelids did not have a slight gesture of moving. Yi Chen had a realization, he understood that she wouldn't attend to him. His angry eyes burned abruptly like a raging flamethrower. Murong Shui. Stop calling her. Her cold poison is taking effect. She has no room to bother with you. Ouyang Xiaochen replied him apathetically. Suddenly, Yi Chen was startled a little bit when he realized it was already midnight. The white bottle of a porcelain vase on his hand glowed with a glimpse of dim light in the dark night. Inside the vase is filled with the fire lotus seed that can rescue Murong Shui's life. He won't let her die. It is obvious that he will eventually give the fire lotus seed to her. However, before handing it over to her, he wants to make sure she knows that if she desires to live, he is the only person in this world that can save her. She has to rely on him. Murong Shui looked up and saw only Ouyang Xiaochen's eyes looking back at her. Her delicate face restored its scarlet complexion a moment ago suddenly turned pale white, droplets of sweat like big beans loomed on her forehead and her delicate body shivered slightly. The look in Ouyang's eyes stiffened for a second, it's her. Cold poison breaking out again. It seems his endogenic force fused with the warmth from the hot spring can only drive out the toxins inside her body temporarily. If she is to survive safely tonight, she'll need the fire lotus seed. His palm moved gently, the white brocade gown lying on the shore flew into his hand instantaneously. He wrapped it around Murong Shui, embraced her and soared up into the sky gracefully like a phoenix, then floated as light as a feather descending on the ground. His finger flicked lightly, in a flash, a layer of white fog lingered around them. When the mysterious white fog faded away, the water stains on them had evaporated and dried. A tender finger as if made of jade crystals, went through the sleeves and retrieved a green porcelain bottle, then a medicine pill was brought out and fed into Murong Shui's mouth. Murong Shui had already been suffering in pain, now bitter and astringent substances fed into her mouth, she disgorged it involuntarily. Ouyang Xiaochen covered her mouth tightly, and said softly. Don't spit it out, eat it. You'll be all right. Ouyang Xiaochen, what did you get her to consume? The look of Yi Chen was gloomy and frightening. His strict tone of interrogation voiced out. While the cold poison is breaking out, carelessly consuming random medicine might cost her life. It is fire lotus seed. Ouyang Xiaochen replied casually. The sharp and stern eyes of Yi Chen squinted. Why would you have the fire lotus seed? Fire lotus seed grows on the Fire Yun Shan mountain, it is collected and delivered to the Qin palace when it reaches maturity, and very few quantities are leaked outside, must be confiscated by Jin dynasty. Why couldn't I, the royals, have it when you also have it? With a cocky attitude, Ouyang Xiaochen cast a glance on him, provoking the gloomy and terrific Yi Chen into retaliation. It is only a fire lotus seed, what's there to be cocky about? Mine, the royal's only fire lotus seed is able to save Murong Shui's life, but you, Majesty Qin saves nobody with your innumerable fire lotus seeds. Ouyang Xiaochen articulated with an unconcealed sarcastic tone. His chest resounds his regulated breathing rhythm. He has lost interest in exchanging words with Yi Chen. Shuer's cold poison has been controlled. I, the royals, am bringing her back for the rest. Farewell. Yi Chen looked livid. Shuer. How intimate are you to be calling her name like that? Watching Ouyang Xiaochen turn around, about to leave the scene with Murong Shui in his arms, bridges of powerful endogenic forces shot out from his sleeves, maneuvered by his spread-out fingers. It was directed at Ouyang Xiaochen, coming from all directions. Ouyang Xiaochen's eyes trembled a little bit. You may leave, but Murong Shui stays with me. The forceful and callous command penetrated Ouyang Xiaochen's ears. The corner of his lips curved up as though he was amused. He flicked his fingers, countless endogenic forces blazed out to meet Yi Chen's attacks. A loud pang 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 echoed, the magnitude of the endogenic forces burst in the middle of the sky, elevated a cloud of dust. As the dust and mist cleared, the surroundings became hollow. Ouyang Xiaochen and Murong Shui's figures disappeared, leaving Yi Chen alone at the side of the huge warm spring. Facing in the direction that pair left, Yi Chen's face turned dark and terrific. His fist hidden under his sleeve clenched tightly. Ka-cha was heard. The white porcelain bottle in his hand crumbled into powder, along with the fire lotus seeds inside, merging with his blood meandering through the gaps between his fingers. However, he was completely unaware of this. His cold stern eyes glittered. Ouyang Xiaochen, I, the king, will make you pay. The color of the night got denser gradually. Ouyang Xiaochen crossed several houses, streets, and landed lightly in his royal residence. His snowy-colored drapes fluttered. Although it was only a set of white apparel, he looked perilously graceful. The guard defending at the courtyard walked up with anxious steps, greeting reverently. My prince. Then the guard saw the person in his chest and was startled slightly. That person was covered by Ouyang Xiaochen's snowy coat, a delicate face covered by his chest, blurring the appearance, but from the silk hair like a waterfall, slender and soft, exquisite yet delicate figure, that is definitely a woman. Isn't my prince disinclined on feminine appeal? How come he is carrying a woman? Ouyang Xiaochen hums lightly. He lowered his head and watched the sleeping lady resting quietly in his arms. An exquisite radiance curved up from his lips, paying no attention to the guard's doubts and questions. He holds Murong Shui and enters his room with his steps swift like the wind. He snapped his fingers and the door closed, blocking the sight of the guard that was following. Inside his chamber, Ouyang Xiaochen placed Murong Shui cautiously on the bed carved with floral patterns. He untied the long skirt and gown that covered her body tightly and pulled a long thin cloth over to cover her body. Murong Shui's eyes were closed. Her long eyelashes were like butterfly wings, forming two thick shadows on her eyelids. Her moist and pink lips were pursed up slightly, the tranquil and peaceful look unsuggested for blemish. A piece of jade slid from her clothes, falling beside the pillow, with a red thread that was attached to the jade, hanging on the nape of her neck. Ouyang Xiaochen sat beside the bed. He picked up the jade pendant and examined its fine carvings, glossy bright and mild warm attributes. The longer a person touches it, the more its warmth propels their blood circulation. This is a priceless treasure. This is a superior warm jade. She has been wearing this jade pendant. Ouyang Xiaochen showed a quirky expression that disappeared after a moment. He placed the jade pendant carefully inside Murong Shui's clothes, sticking it to her skin. His delicate fingers stroke on her exquisite face and he sighed gently. Do you really not remember me? His memory of hers has always been alive and it is a memory of 10 years. Chapter 30, Sleeping in the Same Bed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Murong Shui was looking pale and sick. The cold breeze made her shiver under the blanket. Ouyang Xiaochen hesitated, he then took off his shoes and lay down beside Murong Shui. He held her in his arms, and then pressed his palm against her back, transferring internal force to her slowly. The internal force that entered her body eventually converted to warmth and flowed in her veins, sweeping off the chill that engulfed her body. Murong Shui finally was looking fine. Ouyang Xiaochen smiled as he looked at the girl who was sleeping silently in his arms. He snapped his finger and a strong wind blew out the light. Holding Murong Shui close to him, he went to sleep. Ednel.co. The silver moonlight shone into the room. The scene of a couple holding onto each other was looking sweet. Murong Shui heard a sound of breathing through the mist of sleep. A muscular arm was wrapped around her waist. She was shocked and opened her eyes immediately. What she saw was a white and flawless chest in front of her. What she heard was a strong heartbeat sound that echoed in her ears. Her jaw dropped and she pushed Ouyang Xiaochen away from her. She then sat up straight. The blanket slipped down from her body, revealing her in a beige tube top. She was frightened and grabbed the blanket to cover herself promptly. She was relieved when she realized that she was not hurt and nothing actually happened between Ouyang Xiaochen and her. Ouyang Xiaochen was looking at her all the while. He then sniggered as he sat up slowly. "So you're awake," said Ouyang Xiaochen. "Where is this?" Murong Shui moved herself away from Ouyang Xiaochen, trying to keep a distance between them. She glared at him as she noticed that everything in the room was unfamiliar to her. This was definitely not her room. Xiaoyao's house. "My room." Ouyang Xiaochen then said gently, "You had fallen into a doze after consuming the fire lotus seed yesterday. If I were to send you back to your house, it would definitely ruin your reputation. Besides, I felt uneasy to leave you alone in the guest room, so the only way was to bring you here with me. Every time after Murong Shui consumes fire lotus seed, she will feel dizzy and fall asleep after a moment. After she consumed the medicine yesterday, she had planned to sustain until Murong Yi came to bring her back to the house. However, she was too weak and fainted after a few minutes. Ouyang Xiaochen was right to bring her to his house, but there is a mattress and a single bed in the room. We can sleep separately. Why must you sleep in the same bed with me?" This was the very first time for her to sleep in the same bed with a man. The feeling was weird. Ouyang Xiaochen glanced at her and said, "Yesterday you were shivering even after I covered your body with a blanket. I was afraid that you would get sick, so I decided to sleep with you, and used my internal force to sweep the cold away from your body." Every time Murong Shui suffered from poison attack, she would need a thick blanket to cover all over her body to remove the cold inside her. Ouyang Xiaochen only gave her a thin sheet as blanket. It was certain that she would tremble badly. However, Ouyang Xiaochen was not a servant who takes care of her. It was not his fault that he did not know she required a much thicker blanket. Looking at her annoyed face, Ouyang Xiaochen giggled, "You and I sleeping in the same bed, this will absolutely ruin your reputation. No worries, I will take responsibility of it." Responsibility. They were just sleeping in the same bed for a night and nothing actually happened. What does he mean by responsibility? Murong Shui smiled uneasily and said, "It's just a small matter, no worries." Ouyang Xiaochen became serious suddenly and stared straight into her eyes. "You don't need me to take responsibility, seriously." Murong Shui nodded, "Of course, I'm serious." Ouyang Xiaochen had saved her life. She should show gratitude to him and not blame him. Ouyang Xiaochen was looking a bit disappointed. He walked toward his wardrobe as he unbuttoned his shirt. "Ouyang Xiaochen, what are you doing?" Murong Shui exclaimed. "I'm just changing clothes." Ouyang Xiaochen did not look at her as he answered. Murong Shui frowned, "Can you just take your clothes together with you and change it behind the screen?" Ouyang Xiaochen looked at her and said, "This is my room." He was correct, it was his right to change in his room. Murong Shui curled her lips. She knew it was his room, but she was obviously sitting on his bed. She is a girl, he should have gone to change at somewhere else. Ouyang Xiaochen unbuttoned his shirt and took it off, revealing his perfect body. Murong Shui turned away to face the wall instantly. He doesn't feel shy to take his shirt off in front of another woman, but she does not like to see another man taking off his shirt. Suddenly, a hand tapped on her shoulder. She turned around and saw Ouyang Xiaochen was already dressed in a long white robe. His robe was embroidered exquisitely, and the fact that his sleeves were embellished with mysterious wave and cloud like patterns made him even more marvelous and awe-inspiring. In his hand, he held a pale green dress robe. He delivered it to Murong Shui and said, "This is for you." Murong Shui's blue dress robe was soaked in hot spring water, and even though it had been thoroughly dried up, it became a wrinkled mess and was currently sitting on the footstool at the end of the bed. It was unwearable, and she thought that Ouyang Xiaochen's dress robe was very much a great help to her. But then, why do you own a girl's dress robe? Ouyang Xiaochen's handsome complexion darkened. He lifted her small hand and shoved the dress robe onto it. "This was just bought," he replied, enunciating each word emphatically. The pale green dress robe was cool and silky to touch. This robe was of high quality. Murong Shui pouted and thought. If it is new, what is he even mad about? The faint smell of bamboo ink emitted by Ouyang Xiaochen encircled her. Annoyed, she looked up and stared directly at Ouyang Xiaochen. "Ouyang, your highness, I'm going to change my clothes." "I know," he replied, nodding. "Then why doesn't he leave me alone with my privacy? There should be a clear boundary between males and females. I don't want to change my clothes in front of him. You don't have to be cautious around me. I'm not interested in childish, immature girls." His clear, crisp voice bore into her ears, and her face blackened upon hearing it. She grabbed the pillow beside her and tossed it at Ouyang Xiaochen. "I am not childish.